Whoa. Hey guys. Been a minute. I think I've got some things to address. Let's just roll the intro. So, the unfortunate amongst you that still use X/Twitter may have been inadvertently subjected to some drama recently. In fact, some would say it was the biggest furry drama of all time, regarding how it left the furry community and actually wound up in a couple normie feeds between two furry pop star roommates and the ending of our professional partnership. This video will be long, so strap in. Let me quickly establish a bit of a timeline of how things went down during the height of all of this. It was all started by me, of course, in a series of tweets invoking the name of a recently deceased founder of our furry fan community, in my ongoing quest to define the concept of furry music. This was followed the next day by a Klace tweet saying that he condemned everything I was saying, which is a bit weird and vague, but okay. I mean, it's well within his right to disagree with me that furry music should be furry, right? Then the next day, Klace announced Triple Threat, the album that I spent 3 years writing for him, would be deleted off of sales and streaming services. And then there was all the unsavory ugliness that came after that initial announcement, which I don't really want to go into here. I've already dealt with it face to face with him, and I'm sure drama channels would love the chance to recap all of that. But what I'm saying is the worst personal attacks took place after the album had already been declared for deletion, okay? So in a lot of ways, I'd consider the way I acted very much to be the painful, hurt response. It just was extremely public and messy and not cool. We're not focusing on that here. Because make no mistake, Klace had known what a fireball I was from the day we started working together. In fact, people had been complaining about my involvement since I got announced on the freaking Kickstarter. But the fact is, he approached me because he respected my work and how authentically furry pop it was. Even saying he had worked with the likes of Pepper Coyote and Nice the Singing Dog, but that he wanted to work with me because I just was a bit more pop than they were. Which was an incredible compliment. I was incredibly flattered to be approached for such a project, so of course I said yes. Given the way my reputation has been boiled down to hearsay and my unwillingness to back down from confrontation online, I suspected that my time rubbing elbows with the popufurs of this fandom would be short-lived. Especially when I started calling out many of them over the last several months, many of whom happened to be, of course, friends with the Husky himself. It is possible my provocative tweet invoking Mark/Sai's name was the straw that broke his back, but to say I spoke ill of the dead is a hilarious mischaracterization for anyone with eyes that can read. I do want to take some time in this preamble to clear some things up and apologize a little. I made my statement about Mark/Sai because at the time, I believed that he had been involved in the Ursa Major Awards creation of the anthropomorphic music category, or furry music. And then I extrapolated from that he must have been involved in writing this definition, which was kind of what I was trying to get at in my quest to define furry music. Well, that's not exactly the case, as I was told later on that Mark had been involved in the awards in the early days, but hadn't been for years, and certainly wasn't directly involved in the creation of the furry music category. So while I do adhere to the definition that they've set for what defines furry music, it was absolutely wrong of me to bring up the name of someone who is no longer alive or around to defend themselves in my argument, even if I thought I was literally quoting what they had, done. The Ursa Major Awards, for what it's worth, seem to still be helmed by Rod O'Reilly, who is Mark's longest-term partner, and come the nomination reveal on March 1st, I had gotten enough submissions that I made up 3 of the 5 nominees in the furry music category. By fan vote, I was the people's choice. So that was a really great feeling. And even despite some rabid haters spamming the Ursa Majors with complaints and blah 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 trying to get rid of me, the fact I ultimately made the cut is the biggest sign that I am on the right side of the furry music argument. And I can be at peace with that. But I digress. Upon my arrival back home from my trip abroad, which was where I was when all this stuff went down, not down the hall, as some people assumed, I asked Klace what his problems with me had been prior to all of this, as I had literally just moved into this fur house at the start of February, right around the time he became the primary tenant on the lease. And I'd hoped that there hadn't been any long-term feelings of resentment building up in him, waiting for the worst time to boil over. My concerns proved justified, as the things he rattled off went back not just months, but years, well before I even had an inkling of moving in, and included my transgressions towards his various Popufur friends that he wanted me to apologize to. Klace is starting to develop a bit of a reputation locally for just bottling things up and waiting for the absolute worst time to just unload on somebody, preferably publicly. So I can't say I'm that shocked with how this played out on social media. He just moved here from Winnipeg not even a year ago, and he's already making his mark on the local community. Though, considering his original lofty ambitions for the musical project, I would imagine the reality of the high cost needed to deliver such a quality product made him reconsider the venture. Especially if his heart wasn't in it, as not only did he state to me some weeks before his public heel turn that he was, quote, not interested in any more music for the foreseeable future, but the album literally came out last July, and he had made no progress in getting the physical CD made, which was part of his Kickstarter promises. Though I have some messages that seem to indicate he wanted me to figure out the CD manufacturing. Just more work for me to do without any additional pay for his project, I guess. My heart's not that big, okay? Even my simple requests about whether he wanted to get new art for the singles prior to the album drop were shrugged off with indifference, as he was content just reusing an old piece of art for every single aspect of the album. Which, hey, the guy loves to recycle and repost, so that totally checks out. Saying that's what the Kickstarter backers wanted. Dude, what they wanted was an album with some effort. You think they'd cry if you included more than a single piece of art with it? To call Klace a musician is truly laughable, because he hardly cared about the music at all, and has not written a single note across his 3 published games. The only lyric across the entire project that he changed was in Stay the Night, where he replaced my "Passala aquí" with the French "Passala," whatever it is, yeah. Because it would be more true to the Klace character since he's from Canada. I don't know, it truly felt to me as though Klace seized upon the intense public scrutiny I was getting because of this, comment I made about the fandom's founder, as an excuse to take this project out back Old Yeller style, and hope that some of the many, many eyes that I had on me would transfer over to him. Kind of funny that in his original post, he asked people to download and play Como Rebi, the game that my music is in, which kind of makes this seem a bit more transparent for the attention-grabbing gimmick it was, but whatever. I actually thought people were going to accuse us of staging this whole thing for publicity for a while. Worth mentioning as well that I don't get a cut from any of the game sales, so whether or not he removes my music from Como Rebi, I will never see a penny of the sales from that if it ever gets to the Nintendo Switch or otherwise. I specifically gave up any potential revenue from that so that I could get 50% of all the sales and streaming revenue for the music just on its own without the game attached to it, which is of course why he made a public show of deleting it from those things so that I would no longer make any money. That clever canine. But you know who cared an awful lot, one might even say too much, about the music? Me! I did. Because I wrote it all. I was first messaged in late 2020 by Klace over Twitter, asking if I could write some music for his then upcoming game, Como Rebi. I seriously lowballed myself with how much I charged per song, but I also took on the duties of music supervisor, where I was tasked with finding and hiring producers to bring my compositions to life. Klace himself hired the singer, who remains anonymous. Even I don't know who it is, but it isn't Klace, so let's just clear that up right now. I didn't sign anything, so I'm allowed to talk about this, but it would appear people just assumed Klace was the vocalist. This has always rubbed me the wrong way, because he's literally taking credit for someone else's voice. But the singer always struck me as very professional. They would send timely updates with their vocal, and they would even go so far as to comp and mix their own vocal into the finished instrumentals once I sent them. which kinda cut out the need for a studio engineer to be hired, as after I would send the finished instrumental I had commissioned from a producer, the singer would put his vocals into it and send me a mixed down version that I would then run through an online mastering service through DistroKid, which was honestly something I was really hesitant about because I'm not a studio engineer or a producer, which is why I often use a studio to get that professional sheen that I'm going for with my music. But Klace didn't want to spend that kind of money, so I swallowed my pride and did the best I could with the budget and the time that I had. I just had to accept it wasn't my project at that point, you know? And then bam! Finished songs! Ready for distribution! Tunes so catchy that his IRL friends were like literally obsessed with them and singing them like all the time. I'll be making a companion video to this where I talk about how I wrote each song on that album, so stay tuned for that. At the end of the day, what do I hope happens here? Honestly, I think my first hope is that Klace re-releases the album. I can tell that music is nowhere on his mind right now given his recent hiring post. Nowhere did he ask for anyone in the musical arts, only for already popular streamers. He was adamantly against using any of his VR capabilities to market the music when I was involved. I just can't even begin to imagine the mindset required to trade someone's talent just for engagement. But that's the trade Klace made for everyone to see. And I think that should be a clear sign that no one should ever work with him again. I'm sure they will, as it seems he has endless money. And who would say no to a guy working with Nintendo, right? But unless you get a firm contract with him, consider him a wild card. He will always act in his own self-interest, and he's not afraid to take advantage of others to get the boost that he needs. Just look at how he asked for small-time voice actors to audition to be in his then-upcoming game Komorebi, only to choose a whopping 0 small-time fandom voice actors, opting instead for a full industry roster. He's no stranger to using the fandom's goodwill to boost his posts, giving them the false hope that they may one day be involved in his future endeavors. But if you're not already friends with him or someone with enough money to just pay your way into the game, you will never get the chance. I should know, because he even teased me with the idea of giving me a cameo in Komorebi, and that didn't happen. Another broken promise. In my opinion, I feel as though a lot of what motivated him to ultimately make this decision came down purely to the costs involved. I have all the stuff Klace sent me before this project, and lofty ambitions aside, I don't think he quite predicted what a money pit this would be. Music, like all new hobbies, tends to be a massive investment from the outset. So let's quickly go over some of the numbers that I'm aware of. I got paid 300 Canadian per song, and he paid for 10 songs, releasing 8 on what became Triple Threat. The producers collectively got about $2,000 for all 8 songs, and the e-mastering service cost about $100 a year. As for the post-release, I got about $242 from sales through Bandcamp alone, and then about another $250 from streaming and other online storefront stuff that's not Bandcamp. Given the 50-50 agreement, that means that both me and Klace had earned about $500 apiece in 6 months. So, in less than a year, collectively, we had earned about $1,000 just from the music. And I really don't know anything about the game Komorebi's sales or revenue, but given the release day player count on Steam, I struggle to understand how this was remotely profitable for him, especially since he was spending so much money to make it happen, whether his own or the Kickstarter money. The thing with making art, especially music, is you have to be willing to let it exist in the world long enough to be heard by the right people, or to even just make an impact beyond your initial audience, and to eat any of the costs associated with giving your music the best chance it can get. But given the seemingly month-by-month decline of both streaming and sales for the musical project, and his repeated, stern unwillingness to do any sort of marketing or promotion for the music at all, to the point where he would snap at me in person if I even mentioned it, it honestly came as not much of a surprise that this was the path that he chose. The sort of delete Coyote vs. Acme path, I guess. His Kickstarter brought in about 20 grand Canadian for Komorebi, which means the music budget alone ate up at least a quarter of it, and that's not even including how much the singer charged, because like I said, I have no information on that. But just think on that for a moment. For the music to actually be considered profitable, we'd be waiting approximately 5 to 20 years. Yikes. Perhaps I should use terms more familiar to someone using the aesthetics of a pop star, and I think this better describes the trajectory that Klace took during all of this. So let's call it for what I believe it is, A flop era. One of the most dreaded things to hear in today's creator economy. So why would I think something so scandalous? Well, let's start by mentioning the plushie that Klace failed to sell the minimum of to even get it to enter production. Youch. That's gotta be a blow to his ego. It's not 2014 anymore. The residual Majira clout doesn't have the same pull it used to. Or how about the Kickstarter for Komorebi, which, while successful, you'll notice that there was barely a change in the number of pledges compared to his previous game, Winds of Change, which had a much bigger impact upon release and a much better public reception. Maybe because instead of offering spots for people wanting to pay to be in the game, all those spots had already been taken privately by Klace's rich friends. I'm aware of at least Dante being someone's persona, but it wouldn't surprise me if everyone else in the game was someone's persona too. So this is a game where all of the opportunities have already been taken, and the community involvement was just engagement bait lip service. And this is the guy working with Nintendo? Or is that like maybe how I keep Canada's Got Talent in my bio, but not necessarily something repeatable or relevant as time goes on? Guess we'll see if the Komorebi port ever happens. He's already pushed the release date back a few times because he's already moved on to other projects. Personally, I think he should just write a book if he likes telling stories so much. You know, expand beyond just writing dialogue. Just a thought. But to say some things to my soon-to-be former housemate, what you did in retaliation to me was nowhere near the things that I've said or done, online or offline, however controversially. You made a public spectacle out of pissing away 3 years of musical effort and my hard work for, as you repeatedly put it while you were walking the halls of this house, millions of engagements. Was it worth it? Did you see a significant spike in game sales? Not to kick a dog while he's down, as I don't play video games, nor have I ever played a second of any of his games, but a friend of mine sent me this. It's what appears to be his daily player count across all 3 of his games on Steam. I know this literally isn't reflective of anything besides daily players on Steam, given that the games have been released on multiple platforms, but it's still like nothing? Like, was this really worth erasing my contributions to your character's canon? Like, dude, come on. Try to act like a professional here and not just like an opportunist that chases engagement. And given your obsession with these numbers, you really should know better. Now, I'm going to use some extreme comparisons, but R. Kelly's music is still on streaming even after he got thrown in jail for running an underage cult. Did Lil Nas X remove Industry Baby because the producer, Kanye West, had his 8th public meltdown? No. So really what you're saying to me is that somehow what I've said and done is worse for your reputation than anything that has ever happened in the music industry ever. Or is this just really some performative furry drama stuff, huh? Because that's just not true. And definitely part of why I think he was pressured by some of his Popufur friends to take advantage of this drama that I had found myself in to make a public statement against me. But it's okay, Klace. Not everyone's cut out to be a real-life pop star. Just keep paying the bills and taking the credit, and let the people that know what they're doing take the lead, as you so often do. Reminds me a bit of how you were monologuing around the fur house, saying that you had saved my career with a single tweet. You are clearly delusional and mad with power. Your posts led to people threatening my safety at Vancouver and the event itself to get their way in removing my events. Because of your insatiable desire to push your influence on all around, and your escalating language when talking to VF, it almost led you to get banned yourself. But you did get your way, and my panels did get cancelled, but it was for my safety, not to appease you, a bully. I got a big outpouring of support when I actually showed up to Vancouver, even with my cancelled events. People still came to see me and asked what happened. But if you had truly been starting to hate me for so long, then I'm not surprised you used your new power as basically landlord over me to excise that power while I was out of the country, which is also the most cowardly way you could have done it, because I was acting unfriendly to you and your clout-chasing circle jerk of popufurs that you call friends. To continue with the flop era train of thought, I mentioned briefly earlier that he's been posting the last few days about some exciting opportunity. First, vaguely enough that his request for notable streamers was met with anger from the furry community, then revealing the exciting opportunity was to be a part of a Twitch team of VTubers. Dude, I think you kind of missed the boat on this one. Every wannabe Popufur streamer has been thoroughly spoken for. Everyone's already got a team. I don't even think you'll be able to convince your friend JT to jump ship from VFur to yours. And I know I've brought up JT a time or two here, but Klace isn't even the first Popufur I've seen talk about how they're such close friends with JT, that they think they can help him or whatever. What they mean is they see him as young and naive enough to be easily manipulated for their benefit. I'm not going to name the other person I've heard talk like this about JT, but man, I gotta say for a second that I utterly despise with every fiber of my being how the fandom is being reduced to low-effort video game or content-watching streams with expensive VTuber 3D model avatars. I'd be impressed if I saw some of these folks actually making their own models or doing like animations on stream or something creative, or like how old school furries used to make their own fursuits. But that's not really how this stuff works. I may have called out JT for publicly pining to have a normie audience for his music, of which he still has none, but instead of putting money towards music, he spent the last few months hyping up his next expensive VTuber investment. Enough. This is just too pathetic. At least Klace actually put in some money to make some music, even if he ultimately pulled it back because it wasn't his creation. It's just the saddest display I've ever seen. This is not the community I joined back in 2016. And frankly, I'm okay with going against this current because I'm a strong swimmer. And I joined this fandom to explore my creativity, not farm engagement for low-effort content by using parasocial relationships, okay? As for me, well, right now I'm considering re-recording every song from Triple Threat into a cheeky new project. As the sole songwriter, I'm well within my legal right to do so. Consider me the Taylor Swift of the furry fandom, and Klace can be the Scooter Braun. For people that know, that's an utterly devastating insult. And for people that don't know, well, just call me the Tay Swift of the fandom, okay? A number of people were posting during all this drama that I was over and that my career was dead. But, I'm like just 25 years old. I've been putting the work in for years, and I couldn't be more proud of where I'm at right now. Heck, want to talk about post-drama bumps? My song, Raise a Glass, has landed on Spotify's algorithmically generated Discover Weekly playlist for the last 3 weeks, with an ever-increasing amount of streams each time. That has me unbelievably excited for the future of both furry music and my own work. At this point, my biggest obstacle is just me, and I'm working harder at bettering myself than ever before. I feel like I got taken advantage of to some degree by a wannabe professional, and that is fully on me. And I let my hopes get too entangled with another person's career, which is explicitly why I tend to work solo, because I don't like compromising my ideals or my values. So, I mean, I can't be that surprised with how this ended. The allure of getting my first gig as a songwriter was a bit blinding, especially at the end of 2020 when I was approached. But I'm a lot wiser now than I was back then. And sure, we went through some hardships together to get this project out to fruition, including one of his own Popufur friends threatening me to my face at MFF 2021, saying that he could get me fired from the project because he didn't like me, which Klace actually defended me for at the time, not so anymore, but I'll be sharing more details on that story later this year, so don't go anywhere. You'll learn more soon. Oh, almost forgot to mention, the day I got back to Canada and had to sit down with Klace and the rest of the housemates was the day I deleted Shitter from my phone for the first time since 2008 when I got the app. So that much I'm hoping to keep up, because I am a controversial person with a lot to say, and wasting my life fighting with every naysayer on the internet is a great way to leave a nice long rap sheet of hastily typed angry replies that people can use against me in the future. So I'll be keeping my distance from social media for as long as I can, and using it only to promote stuff that I'm working on or upcoming music releases. The things I need to talk about would work a lot better in a well-presented scripted format such as this, and not somewhere where everyone gets the same platform to either agree or spread misinformation.
Hey guys, sorry for the human jump scare, but I wanted to record a bit of an epilogue at my new place to kind of tie up the Klace drama saga in my life so that I can move on. It's hard to believe it's been 3 months since all this happened, but I'm incredibly grateful and thankful to the support I received both publicly, via private DMs, and even the comments left on Klace's original tweet where he said that I was gonna get help and he was happy for me, that he would delete within the same day because I slipped up. And even though I had Twitter deleted from my phone, I happened to catch a glimpse of some of his simps spreading the same misinformation that had, gotten me worked up so incredibly that I left one comment on Facebook, and he still found out about it. He deleted the entire post and then put up a new one re-condemning me, and back at square one. But it's worth pointing out that part of the agreement that I had struck with the housemates at that furry house, the day I had arrived from my trip abroad, which was where all the drama went down, they had promised to show me the support and the positive comments that were undoubtedly going to be left on Klace's post because people, want to see me get help or, whatever. And I'm happy to say that I have seen a counselor, and I'm continuing to see a counselor, and I'm trying to rein in my social media use and my aggressiveness. But, weaning someone off of that sort of online environment is incredibly hard. So I did slip up within the day, and I left that one comment on Facebook that set everything back and basically got me evicted. I've had to reconcile that, but I also have realized that Klace really doesn't care about me getting help. Klace was only interested in using the idea of me getting help to, again, get more tweets and more likes and everything that he has shown that that's all he cares about. He is like a social media leech, and that really sucks because the housemates promised that they would show me the positivity, and I'm pretty sure Klace just spent the day yucking it up in VR chat and Discord with all his Popufur friends and gloating about how he saved my career with a single tweet and all that. In the end, I just have to look out for me, and I got pushed out of that house, but now I'm in a place of my own. I can't wait to share it with you guys, but it's not quite at peak readiness yet, which is why your background is just this TV. I'm noticing that furries that the community holds up as creators are more so creating chats or Discord servers for their young fans to pile into, where they will essentially be groomed by the creator to become attack dogs on their behalf. It's more or less what happened at Vancouver, and it's what may continue to happen when people speak up against these so-called popufurs. Klace getting banned from Furality is probably the funniest thing that could have happened as a result of all this. He openly poached their staff unapologetically, and since we had worked together for like 2-3 years, he made it very clear to me that Furality and VR were essential promotion platforms for him and all his game stuff. I think it's safe to say his reign of terror is over, or at the very least, on the way out with his tail between his legs. His big announcement coinciding with Furality this year is no accident and was rightly called out immediately. I could have sworn I was the one told not to burn bridges. Huh. Weird. And I just want to say quickly that we are not friends, and I honestly don't think we ever were. He wanted me for my talent and skills as a furry pop songwriter in the fandom, and I needed him for, well, nothing really. All it led to was me having to put on a fake smile to appease his popufur overlords, and when I decided to no longer play ball with them, I was cast out. So Klace, I'm glad your bullying finally resulted in some consequences for you. You might not be a rich white boy, but you are an arrogant asshole with the unearned confidence of a guy who uses other people's money to develop undercooked visual novels for your friends to star in. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I hope your Kickstarter backers get everything you've ever promised them. And to quote yourself, I hope no one ever supports you in the future. Oh, and by the way, because I can't help myself, spoilers for a future self-insert Klace game. He told me his character's Komorebi, or vision of the future for himself, is that he is going to be shot and killed. So, yeah, like the guy wasn't delusional enough, he's got his own demise planned in-game. A very normal thing to do with your self-insert character. But yeah, I should wrap this video up because it's long. So,
I couldn't possibly wrap up this video without extending the biggest thanks in the world to my patrons, which have continued to stick around through thick and thin, turmoil and regular oil. Just remember, I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes too, and I just hope I can right the wrongs with the people willing to give me a chance going forward. People can change if they put the work in, and I am certainly prepared to ease up on the aggression, okay? after all this is done, I gotta get my footing in a whole new setting. Because yes, I am moving to a new place. This is probably the one and only video I'll be recording here. Which means that yes, Klace is literally down the hall right now. He'll probably watch this, and whether or not he tweets about it, I don't know. I won't be around to see it, but I'm sure he'll whine to his friends in Discord about it. I wonder if he'd been lying to them that he was the singer on his music too. Alright, that just about wraps up this video, but hopefully the stories and personal anecdotes that I've shared will shed some light onto the haste of the decisions made by the Popufur who wanted to make me homeless for clout. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment with your thoughts on all of this, or if you came across the drama in the wild or something like that. But either way, I'm Cassidy Civet, and this has been my time. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully it'll be more positive in the next one, but I kinda doubt it. Bye! Mwah! Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.